The B-screw is the most unnecessarily overused screw on a bike by both home mechanics and shop mechanics alike. Have you ever been completely frustrated trying to index the gears on your bike? Maybe they work one way, but not the other. Or worse, they refuse to cooperate at all. Trust me, I know the struggle. Even now, I still get caught out by this sometimes, especially when it's on a brand new bike. You see, manufacturers usually just slap the components onto a frame to keep costs down. And to make matters worse, the mechanic who did the final assembly, well, there's a good chance they were randomly messing with the range screws while blasting out house music, oblivious whether the gears are actually indexed or not. And here's the kicker. Many of them don't even know the basics of gear indexing. But I do. Welcome to Stage 13 of Tour de Bike 2024, where I'll guide you step by step through setting up each range adjuster perfectly, so you can finally enjoy smooth, crisp shifting without the headache. And stick around, because at the end, I'll show you how the problem might actually be built into the derailleur itself, and the secret to making sure it never bothers you again. Plus, there's an extra tip for dialing the indexing right in. So buckle your toe straps, let's jump straight into it right now. Let's start with the low or L screw, because it's the one that has no effect on your indexing. More importantly, we don't want to forget about it, and the derailleur ends up in the back wheel while we're just setting up the gears. Shift the rear gears all the way up to the largest cog. It really doesn't matter which chaining you're in. Once it's up there, push the cage ever so slightly, just in case it's not right. And you can see it just goes over the top of the cog and onto the dummy disc. So we need to adjust the bottom screw or the low screw to stop the overshifting. Most rear derailleurs have the L&H stamped or printed on them somewhere. On Shimano rear derailleurs, the high screw for the highest gear, the smaller sprocket, is the top one of the two. The L screw is always at the bottom. So let's just screw the L screw in until we feel a small amount of resistance because it's reached the stop. Give it another little push while you pedal. If it sounds or looks like it's trying to ride over the back of the sprocket, keep turning the L screw in small increments until it doesn't. If it's trying to go into the next sprocket down, back it off a little until it's staying happily in the larger sprocket. The ideal position for the lowest limit is when the center of the largest sprocket and the guide pulley wheel at the top are in line. Now let's set up the H screw so we don't end up with the chain derailing onto the frame. The best way to do that is in the big chain wheel, because this is where it may struggle to go into the smaller sprocket, even if it works on the inner ring. Screw the H screw in a little bit until it starts making some noise from it trying to get into the second cog up. Back the screw off approximately half a turn or until the ticking noise goes away. Pull the inner cable or push the parallelogram so it moves to the next sprocket up and release. The H screw is in the right place when it doesn't make any noise, and in the big chain wheel it just drops straight down from the second smaller sprocket to the smaller sprocket. You can check visually from behind the bike. The center of the top jockey wheel should be just out of line with the middle of the smallest sprocket towards the frame. So the other thing that's important here is the cable tension is not actually holding the derailleur in place rather than the H screw. You can check this by pulling the inner cable slightly, and if it doesn't move the derailleur, then it's okay. Both the limit screws are now set. Let's shift this into the smallest chainring at the front and the largest sprocket at the back, because that's where we can set the B screw up. The B screw is only really there so you can adjust the derailleur further back to allow for larger sprockets, up to its maximum stated capacity. So the guide pulley wheel at the top of the jockey cage doesn't touch the larger rear sprockets. There needs to be enough clearance so the chain doesn't catch the sprocket teeth when shifting too. The simplest way to adjust the B screw is to screw it out so it allows the body to go forward until it looks like the top jockey wheel touches the largest cog. Turn the B screw back in to bring the derailleur backwards. Let's start with a whole turn and see how that goes. Check it's all right by just shifting down to the next biggest cog and then back up. It's still making a little noise as it's shifting up. So let's add another half a turn. It doesn't make that noise anymore, but let's just do one final check. Noise is defo gone. Both Shimano and SRAM offer setup tools. I always find it easier to not waste my time with these and just go by the measurements supplied online or use my best judgment. The general rule for most rear derailleurs is 5 to 7 millimeters. By setting the derailleur too far back, you're actually retarding the shift from the bigger cogs to the smaller cogs. So I've got the three range screws, the B screw, the H screw, and the L screw, all in the right place. Now I'm just going to quickly set the gears up. Gears on the rear are set up. I've checked the indexing on both the inner and the outer chainring. Don't forget, I'm going to show you how the rear derailleur could be the indexing problem and how to dial that right in. Let's have a look at two ways the indexing can be individually messed up by adjusting the B screw or the H screw incorrectly. The converse is not being able to index the gears because these screws are in the wrong place to start with. In the largest cog, I'm going to adjust the B screw in so it pushes the rear derailleur back too far, and now I can get my fingers in between the sprockets and the chain. If we measure that distance now, it's 15 mil, 2 to 3 times further than the ideal. The result to the shifting is hesitation of the derailleur coming down the cassette to the smaller sprockets. The other thing it's done is made the chain not engage in as many teeth when it's going around, while also unnecessarily increasing the chain tension. This makes the dry train less efficient and will wear out quicker, all other things being equal. If you're using the B screw to adjust your chain tension, unless you're using ratios out of the range of the maximum capacity of the rear derailleur, your chain is either worn out or just too long. Let's reset this B screw so it's in the right place, so it won't affect what we're going to do to the H screw. Let's undo the H screw so it's further out towards the frame. I've also taken all the tension off the rear gear inner cable. You can hear that it's actually clicking like it's not in gear. I've set the cable tension so it pulls the derailleur from the outboard starting position up onto the second smallest sprocket, and then it indexes as it goes up the cassette. You can see at some point when it gets up towards the middle to top end of the cassette, the chain overshifts. The reason it does that is because the cable tension has to be tighter to make the first shift than if it's in the correct starting point. As it gets further up the cassette, the over-tensioned cable will make the derailleur shift further than it is meant to. So by setting the B screw and the H screw so the derailleur is too far out, you're in a situation where the gears can't be indexed up or down. That's why it's so important to get them right before even trying to get the gears indexed. The final thing I want to look at here is the adjuster on the rear derailleur. The gears may never index properly because of this inbuilt problem, but there is an easy fix. Before I do, a quick reminder, this is stage 13 of a 21-stage tour around any new bike, showing all the shortcuts taken at production and final assembly to cut costs. If you haven't already checked the previous stages out, take a look to see what else needs attention before it's too late. In stage 14 of Tour de Bike 2024, we'll be visiting the front derailleur region to take a look at the importance of its alignment and height. And I'll be asking the question why the manufacturer's instructions aren't followed when they're right there in front of the mechanic on the component. About 10 years ago, the thread length on our rear derailleur barrel adjusters became significantly shorter. Couple this with internally routed cables, and it's quite easy to screw them so far out the adjuster is not actually in the derailleur body anymore. It would be impossible to successfully index the gears if this happens. Worse still, you could actually ruin the thread in the derailleur body. If that's not enough, the more it screws out, the more the adjuster can wobble around. This is the opposite of what you need to get optimal indexing. The way around this is to do as much adjustment as you can on the adjuster at the front of the frame. If you've got an inline cable adjuster, you can do it there. If you haven't got an inline adjuster, you could always put one in. The added advantage of not just relying on the derailleur adjuster is being able to adjust in smaller increments, so you can dial the indexing right in. I've set up enough gears to know the smaller increments using the other adjuster can make all the difference to the fine tuning. If you got value out of this video, click or tap the like button, share it with someone who'd benefit from it, and I'd like to hear from you what you liked best. What was an aha moment for you, whether it be from this stage or one of the previous ones? My name's Ashley Malcolm, and I can't wait to see you in stage 14 of Tour de Bike 2024. Until then, thanks and take care.